So I'm going to say something in the beginning of this video, and I would think most people watching, most people I would assume watching are like diehard Michigan fans like myself. So I would think that you would agree. And I'm going to say it despite the fact that I know it's not true. Like, objectively, this is not true. But I swear August is the longest month of the year. It just feels like it. We're definitely in those like dog days of summer kind of days right now. The weather hasn't quite changed yet. The summer's been here for quite a while yet, and we haven't really started to see the temps come down or anything really change there. The fall camp for football has started, which is obviously what this video will be about. So therefore, the football for me this time of year really starts to come back to being front of mind, and I get really excited for it. And it's kind of that watched pot never boils kind of phenomenon going on for me right now. I'm going to admit, I'll be honest, and maybe it makes me lesser of a fan, but in the months of like March, April, June, July, I kind of let football take a back seat to the fandoms of other sports I watch. Granted, I do pay attention to spring ball here and there when that's going on, and I kind of have to as somebody who now runs a college football channel. By the way, like, share, subscribe. We'd love to have you here in our community. Join our Discord. The link will be in the comments, pinned in the comments, by the way. But it just feels like this time of year, the days go by a little slower, and even the hours and the minutes, because I'm just flat out ready for football to be here. But we do have fall camp going on, and that's why I wanted to make this video today, because we got some tidbits, we got some information we'd like to share with you guys, being reported around different outlets and being said in different interviews. And well, I like to think of myself not as an insider, but somebody who kind of gathers all the information and it kind of bundles it up nicely and wraps it up with a nice bow and kind of gives you guys one place to come to for all the important information coming out of Michigan's fall camp. And the first thing I'm going to get into in this video that I thought was of important note, just to get right into it, is that freshman wide receiver Travis Johnson continues to impress so far in fall camp. In fact, Jair Hill, in an interview the other day, said that he and Celesi Moa, both freshmen, have been his toughest covers in fall camp so far. Notably, the team has gone through some scrimmages of 1v1s, as has been reported, in the Big Ten, on the Big Ten Network the other day. Kyle Wittingham confirmed it, Jake Butt, Dave Revson, and then the guys at the Big Ten media on the Big Ten Network were all talking about the other day. So we know Jair Hill has gone up, I would assume, against the likes of J.J. Buchanan, Jamie French, and even Andrew Marsh. And it was interesting that Hill noted that specifically Celesi Moa and Travis Johnson have been two of the more difficult guys for him to cover. That's really good news, considering Michigan already has, like I said, J.J. Buchanan, who's also impressing so far very much in fall camp, Jamie French, and as we all know, Andrew Marsh on roster. So you count those three guys, and then potentially Travis Johnson and Celesi Moa playing well as well, coming out of fall camp into the first week of the season. And well, that's 5 good wide receivers in the room, 5 guys that can be productive against a high quality corner like Jair Hill. I can't remember the last time Michigan football had that many wide receivers on roster that you trust on the field. You'd have to go all the way back to probably the Lloyd Carr days, when they had Chad Henne, they had Steve Breston, Braylon Edwards, et cetera, on roster. But important to note, and again, I don't want to get over our skis here. I don't want to overhype anything, but this is 2 solid weeks now that we've heard about Travis Johnson. I mentioned in the last video I did on Michigan's fall camp so far, it's important to note when players are mentioned one week and then not mentioned as much another week. It's also important to note generally that growth is rarely linear, right? Guys will have good days and then bad days and then good days and bad days. Sounds like Travis Johnson has had more good days than bad days so far. We'll, of course, keep an eye on things, see how things are progressing, and see if his name gets mentioned more going forward. But that's really promising, again, for Michigan football if they have some freshman wide receivers that, say, a J.J. Buchanan goes down, a Jamie French goes down, and this would be the worst scenario imaginable in that wide receiver room, but Andrew Marsh goes down, there's at least some guys on roster who can be productive in their place. And then the next thing I wanted to mention, speaking of kind of depth being of very much importance, we've been keeping an eye on the linebacker room. I've talked a good bit about the linebacker room as a weakness for this team this coming season. With Jimmy Rolder and Ernest Hausman, and even, Jayshawn Barham was mostly an edge player last year, but also did play the linebacker position quite a bit. The team was completely, it was an empty room when it came to guys who actually had a good amount of experience. Now, Troy Bowles and Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng were the players that we figured to be the starters in that room. But so far during this fall camp, this offseason into fall camp, Nathaniel Staling, the senior transfer from North Dakota State, is the guy getting all the run. In fact, in an interview the other day, Kyle Wittingham referred to the senior transfer as an instinctive player, and that Staling reminds him of linebackers that he's seen in the NFL, which is really high praise when you think about the fact that, first of all, Kyle Wittingham has been coaching college football and has been a defensive-minded coach and defensive coordinator at the premier level of college football for going on 30 years now altogether. But people also forget that Wittingham himself played linebacker in the NFL for the Rams back in the day. So I think game recognized game there. Kyle Wittingham knows what he's talking about. And it should also be of note that Chase Taylor is also getting some mention in that room. So yes, Troy Bowles and Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng are really high potential prospects, I think is the best way to mention to refer to them. Troy Bowles obviously had some production last season and some experience, as did NOB, Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng. So they should definitely still be playing, but it looks like that rotation might be there. The depth piece also might be there more so than we thought. And who knows, Chase Taylor and Nathaniel Staling could definitely vie for the starting positions in what I still think will primarily be a 4-2-5, nickel defense with only two linebackers on the field most of the time. So anything could happen from here on out, given the reports that we've gotten. There's 4 guys vying for 2 positions there, it sounds like. And Nathaniel Staling, with his experience and that instinctiveness, will definitely come in handy when Michigan's trying to stop the running games of, a lot of these opponents on their schedule with great offensive lines and great running games. Great linebacker play in college and in the Big Ten is defined by the ability to recognize what gap the running back is shooting for and plug that gap quickly. And if he's as instinctive as Kyle Wittingham says, that might be his best quality, and that might be what gets him on the field playing regularly. And we're going to highlight another defensive player here because I don't think we could do this video and do it justice and provide you guys with the most up-to-date, accurate, important information without mentioning Shamari Earls. Shamari Earls sounds like he's definitely a name to watch. And we mentioned it with Travis Johnson. We're also going to mention it with Shamari Earls here. This is now 2 weeks in the fall camp, and throughout both weeks, the coaches have mentioned him in interviews. Jair Hill also mentioned him as a guy who, quote-unquote, moves like a starter. And if this is true, if all this hype about Shamari Earls, the former highly rated recruit who, by the way, at one point in time, if I'm remembering right, was once committed to Georgia, if this is true about him, that means Michigan has probably 4 or even 5 guys in that cornerback room for only 2 or 3 starting spots. Considering they're going to play a bunch of nickel, you'd play 3 corners, right? Jair Hill, Zeke Berry, and Smith Snowden, I think, are the guys you could pencil in, or especially in Jair Hill's case, pen in, write in pen as a starter there. But from everything we're hearing, Shamari Earls could definitely vie for at least playing time. It's going to be hard actually to compete for a starting spot. Smith Snowden comes in as a transfer senior, so he has the experience like the Nathaniel Staling has. We actually just did a video on Smith Snowden and how high I am on him this year. And Zeke Berry also has a ton of experience as well. So for a sophomore, Shamari Earls to compete for starting time there, I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen, but it sounds like it's closer to being a straight up position battle than some might have thought heading into fall camp. And like I said, as we all know, Shamari Earls came in with a ton of potential as like a borderline 5-star recruit. He was like a 4-star, but with like a 96 overall composite rating, if I remember right, 95 or 96 composite rating on 24/7 coming out of high school, I should say. So keep an eye on that battle for sure. And that's also good proof that there's actually more depth in the cornerback room specifically than we might have thought of, than what we might have previously thought. And then lastly, but certainly not least, we got to talk about the passing game, probably one of the biggest question marks for this team heading into the season. And it should be of note, during an appearance on the Big Ten Network, Kyle Wittingham sat down with Jake Buck, Dave Revsnin, and company and said that he would give Bryce Underwood an A+ grade so far for his performance in fall camp as a passer specifically. So I think that's a really, really good sign that Bryce Underwood is progressing well. I haven't gotten the impression that Kyle Wittingham is a guy who will just say things just for the sake of kind of saying them. He seems to be a very honest, upfront head coach, and he's only going to give his players credit when they really deserve it. And that's kind of the congruence of being that honest, man of high integrity that he is. Kyle Wittingham went out of his way to give Bryce a shout out and give him that, like I said, quote unquote A+ grade so far through fall camp. So that's of important note. Other guys obviously have mentioned in interviews, on the defensive side, Jair Hill. On the offensive side, Jamie French was talking about how Bryce Underwood compares to Arch Manning the other day in an interview. This is all, of course, fall camp hype, and we can't take it, with too much weight. But we're definitely hearing everything you'd want to hear right now about Bryce's development, which is promising for the future. Like I said earlier in the video, I cannot wait for Michigan to play their first game against Western Michigan this season. I'm counting down the days, I'm counting down the hours, I'm counting down the minutes, and you should be too. And by the way, if you're like me, you should like this video, subscribe, help get us up into the algorithm, get more eyes on this channel, help it continue to grow, and join our ever-growing Discord community. We'd really appreciate it. That's going to do it for the fall camp updates this week, guys. And as always, and forever going forward, go blue and be kind to other people out there.